Hey, welcome to this lecture on Photoshop Basics. I'm going to be talking about color in this lecture. We're going to be going over a bunch of important stuff that you need to know when importing images into Photoshop, how to edit them, how to change the colors, how to crop your canvas size, how to change your image size, how to adjust color levels like hue and saturation, and darkness levels and things like that. So let's get into it. So I've got my Photoshop document here, just with a white background. I'm going to import an image that I've drawn. So I'm going to click File, Place Embedded. And I'm just going to pick an image from one of my folders here. And this is the good guy that I drew in the good guy, bad guy lectures, how to create a cartoon character. I've colored him up a bit here. So I've placed him now, and he is a fully movable image within my canvas. You can see those pink lines around him. Those are the rulers that are invisible. Now it'll show you that center line that's directly like in the center of your page if you're trying to place an image. You can also use these rulers. You can click and drag these if you want to place an image precisely. And you can line them up with the measurements here, 0, 1, 2, 3, and that's your inches. You can click Control:" to show and hide these rulers. You can also click Control:"R" to hide and show the rulers on the edge of your canvas as well. So we can see here that it creates a new layer when you import, and you can see this page with the square in the corner. It's like a text thing where you have to rasterize the layer before you can erase or do anything like that. So we're going to rasterize it. That will allow us to erase and edit it just like anything else. So I'm going to show you how to change your page size now. So you want to go into image, and you can see image size and canvas size here. Now they're a bit different than each other. Canvas size is the canvas size won't adjust your image proportions like your actual painting on the image. So you'll click that and you'll have this dialog box here. If you change this, it's not going to squash your image or anything like that. So we have this anchor. The anchor is going to show you what you're going to chop off. So when you empty out squares, that's what it's going to chop off in relation to how much you want. So let's bring this down to 6 inches and 8 inches. Now it's going to chop off actually let's go like that. It's going to chop off the top and the sides. Or it's going to chop off it's going to chop off the top and bottom equally, and it's going to chop off the right hand side. So if we click OK and proceed, it's going to do that to our image. Now you can see that it's chopped his hand off a little bit. It's actually good for this demonstration so you can see what will happen. But if we try to move our image, it doesn't chop him off. So his image stays intact, but you can see the canvas fits much more nicely and he is intact. Now if we change the image size, we'll have this dialog box, and we can change all these things. If you created your thing at 72 DPI, don't try and like switch midway through to like 300 resolution. It's not gonna make a difference. Now if we go like this and we change it to 3 inches and click OK, we'll see what happens. So you can see here that it doesn't just crop your page, it actually squashes everything to fit in that page within the same ratios. So that's the difference between canvas and image size. Okay, let's edit this guy a little bit. One thing that I would like to show is the eyedropper tool. So the eyedropper tool is here and the shortcut is I. It's very important when trying to match colors and pick colors, and what it allows you to do is just click anywhere. You can even click and drag and it will change. You can see it in the bottom left here. That's where you want to be looking when picking colors. You can even click X and then pick two colors at the same time for quick use. Now that'll allow you to paint with the right colors. Very important. I'll show you the paint bucket tool. The shortcut is G. Now we can create a new layer. We can create a background layer. Say we want to do some purple, and that will fill. Our guy is not a proper PNG file, so we have that white border there. That's why that appears. So that's the benefit of creating a PNG file with a transparent checkered background on Photoshop. When you import an image file, you won't have this white square effect. So that's what that will do. The paint bucket, it'll put a full sheet of color. Now the gradient tool is very important. Let's select some red, and I'm going to create a new file here. I'm going to hit G, and now we can see our gradient options at the top. So we have all these kind of gradient effects. This one I use the most because it has a transparency effect, so it's not going to affect stuff on the bottom. And I usually keep the opacity like pretty low, less than half, so I can slowly bring up the intensity of it. If you crank it to 100, it will be less forgiving, and you're only going to need a couple to start making the top of your gradient completely that color. So this is the linear gradient. Now we have a radial gradient, so you can just left click these, and let's make his button glowing. So that's 100. You can see why I usually keep it pretty low. It allows you to do softer effects, so you just click and drag and do it a couple times to get the effect that you want. So that I use this all the time for like shining objects and stuff like that. You can even overlay different colors on top of each other. Maybe do like a slight orange inside. Right? So you can get all kinds of realistic effects with that. You can do a pyramid. That'll give you the hard edge. Pretty cool. And you can do, it's basically like a core shadow, like on a cylinder, if you can imagine a cylinder. Pretty useful one. Really nice. And you can do a star pattern. Yeah, now you can see it there. That's a really nice light effect as well. And you can do all kinds of layer options as well. These are the same kind of effects as found on your layer panel. Alright, that's pretty good for gradients. You should try those, get used to them. They're really, really effective. A lot of professionals even use gradients, so they don't look cheesy if you know how to use them. That's one thing to remember. Alright, let's take these off for now, and let's get into some color adjustments. So your image adjustments is going to be a tool that you're going to use all the time. Let's go into hue saturation. So you get this dialog box here. Now we have 3 major sliders that you're going to want to worry about. This is your hue slider, so this is going to change the overall set of colors you're using. So you can see as the more I slide it, the more everything starts to change, and each side is going to have the same effect. If I go all the way to 180 and all the way to -180, it's going to be the same, but you have these different levels in between. And usually, like, if something's not quite right, like, even that's pretty cool, but if something's not quite right in my picture, sometimes I'll start to adjust that a little bit, and I'll find what I'm looking for. Here we have the saturation slider, so that's going to bring up the intensity of all your colors on that layer. So just remember, this only applies to the layer that you have selected. So if we crank it up, our colors are going to get real intense. If we bring it down, we're going to go into a grayscale. So this is a good way to change your picture into a black and white image if you want. And down here we have the lightness scale. I'm sure you can tell what that does. We can bring it all the way to white. We can bring it all the way to black. It's a really important thing to learn how to do. So let's try something else. Let's go to image adjustments, brightness and contrast. So we have our brightness slider here, and you can see how it differs from the other one on the other on the images adjustments that I just showed. This doesn't affect that square it's in. It'll only affect your image. And we have our contrast, so this is going to change the contrast of things. You can see that is a nice effect. So you can obviously find all sorts of stuff that's going to affect your image in cool ways. That's invert. Now we have color balance, and I'm going to show you the major ones. So we have our color balance has 3 sliders here. You can adjust tone balance here. This is your cyan and red. So if you bring it up, obviously we'll add more cyan. So it's kind of like if you're really good with your color theory, and you're like, oh, maybe I just want to add a little bit more red into those pigments, you'll adjust that slider there, and these ones are self-explanatory. Right, more blue, more yellow, and then you can double up. So you can find all kinds of new things with that. Now levels is very important. I will show you how to do levels with your line work in another lecture. That's mostly what I use this for. But you're going to be using this slider here, and each of these does something different. Right, you bring this one up, and they're color coded black, gray, and white. So that's increasing your intensity like that. Dark, dark, dark. Right, so there's all kinds of effects that you can get with this, and this adjusts strictly the tone of your image. There's another box that works similar to levels. It's called curves. So basically you're going to want to click and drag on this curve. And that's going to work with your tones as well, and your intensities. So you're going to want to play around with that. You don't really have to know like the math of what's going on here. You just have to just play with it a little bit. You'll get a better feel for it as you work with it. It's tough to explain, but it's more of an intuitive process, and you can see easily how it's affecting your image. And there's a direct way to use it and apply it to your line work, which is going to be a grayscale image anyway. So it's a lot easier to use on a grayscale image, and super easy to clean up your line work and make it pop. So one last tool, I'm going to even crop this guy a little bit more. So I'm going to use my crop tool. That's shortcut C, and you'll see this box around your image, and you'll see these little sliders. So we can just slide it like that, and we can crop our guy into a perfect page, and then just press enter, and you have a cropped image. Now let's save them. File, save as, and you can see here that it pops up as a Photoshop document right away. Save them as good guy color demo and click save. Now before you click save, you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. We have this here, it says layers. You want to keep that checked if you want to be able to use this file to go back and adjust all your layers. It's not going to flatten your image. So if all my Photoshop documents, I always make sure I have layers selected, and that's the default anyways. So make sure that's selected and click save. Alright, that's it for this color lecture. I hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you in the next one.